We are going to start off today in an elevated child's pose. So we've done this type of child's pose before, and now we're going to be doing an elevated one. So for an elevated child's pose, we're taking our knees to hip width apart, and we're keeping the knees directly underneath the hips. As much as you can, you're trying to keep the tops of your feet and your shins on the floor. So you might notice that your feet want to do this. Let's try and keep those feet active and pushing down. You may feel like a little bit of work going on through the feet and the calves in order to keep the feet grounded. Work is good, cramp is good as well. We're taking our elbows wider than shoulder width apart, and we're bringing the palms of our hands down. So my elbows are wide and my fingers are nearly touching each other. I'm spreading my fingers really nice and wide, and I'm pushing into the floor with each and every one of my active fingers, the palms of my hands and my forearms. My head goes on the floor, and what I am trying to do here is create a long line through my spine. So I'm going to talk you through some of the ways in which people compensate in this. Some people will come too far forward and they'll sort of have like this sagging in the rib cage and in the lower back. That is not what we want when we do this child's pose position. Other people will be too tucked kind of backwards, and they're going to be too rounded in their upper back. So can you see there in my upper back, I'm kind of like hunching and rounded. We don't want that. We're trying to find a position where your back is nice and flat. So for me, I definitely have a tendency to sag into my rib cage. So I need to think about drawing my rib cage at the bottom and at the front in. And hopefully you can see there how my spine is lovely and flat. I'm not arching too much into flexion, nor am I sagging into extension too much. I am keeping a straight line from hip through the shoulder and down to the ear. We're going to set a timer here for 3 minutes. What you are doing is trying to obviously keep your breath nice and relaxed. You're trying to keep your head nice and relaxed. You're going to be keeping your fingers wide and pushing them into the floor, pushing your palms into the floor and pushing your forearms into the floor, so that you feel this kind of work going on through the hands and forearms. You may start feeling things going on in your shoulders. You're going to keep the toes pointed nice and long. And for me, I feel my right shoulder kind of stretching and moving, and I feel my left hip flexor, so the front of my hip is waking up nicely as I do this. If I sag too much, I don't feel anything because I'm just passively sagging into the movement. And if I flex too much, I'm not coming far enough into the movement to feel anything. So we're making sure that we're pivoting around the pelvis, keeping the spine long. I'm tucking my rib cage in so that I don't flare it. And I'm keeping that solid pressure down to the floor with my hands and my arms, focusing on my deep diaphragmatic breathing. We've got about 1.5 minutes left here. So this child's pose elevated with palms flat is waking up the hips and balancing off the pelvis. It's also focusing on repositioning the shoulder blades and the thoracic spine. So we're using the hands and the arms to reposition the shoulder blades and the thoracic spine. I'm trying to keep my hips above my ankles. I have a bit of a tendency to want to like pull back probably a little bit too far. The hips stay above not the ankles, the knees, tucking in that rib cage, but tilting the pelvis forwards. So I'm not tucking the pelvis under, I'm tucking the pelvis forwards, but tucking the rib cage in, which definitely wakes up my left hip quite a lot. It's almost cramping, which is a good thing. I love getting cramp. It doesn't happen to me too much anymore. So when I get it, I get excited, and I'm definitely getting a cramp here. And it's a lovely feeling in my hips. We've got 45 seconds left. Really keep breathing. You're focusing on that diaphragmatic breath, breathing from the lungs, the diaphragm, the belly, the lower back, the ribs. Tilting pelvis forward, tucking rib cage in so you are not sagging, pushing down and slightly back into your hands on the floor, forearms, keeping the fingers wide, the head stays relaxed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to come out of this one and we are going to